Welcome to Connected Conversations for Creatives. I'm your host, Jennifer Carr, and I am excited to be able to introduce to you Cade Scott. He's a writer, an author, a teacher of writing. I was fortunate enough to be introduced to Cade and his work through one of my other podcast guests, which thrilled me to no end because this is literally why I wanted to pursue the idea of connected conversations, just to connect one person to another person who we can relate to one another, the jobs that we have, the responsibilities that we take on. So Cade, thank you for hanging out with me. I know it's been kind of a busy week for both of us. I would love for you to tell us what you want us to know about you, what you do when you decided to become an author, a writer, what you're currently writing, anything and everything you want us to know.
Sure. No, yeah, well, I'm going to try to be as brief. I'll try to give the short story version of this.
We're here for it. That's what the edit button's for.
Right? Yeah. I always struggle, even like in professional interviews, you're like, so tell me about yourself. And I'm like, oh man, what details, and this is life of an author, what details do I put in that advance the story forward that still makes sense? Anyway,
that's right.
So I'll try to give a good kind of here's where I was, here's where I am now. So
okay.
I actually discovered this quote the other day where someone was talking about kind of the meaning of life, but I kind of saw it as like the meaning of like your professional career. Because I don't know if I want to go that far, but it makes sense like with anything, this framework makes sense of like there's a moment of kind of discovery, then there's a period of development, and then hopefully at the end there's a time where you get to share kind of a gift or get to share with others what you've kind of developed. And I feel like I'm somewhere between the develop and the gift part of writing, I would say, where like any other writer, I discovered that I loved it, or I don't want to say like any other writer, but I discovered at a young age that I loved books. I loved reading. I was writing in journals, at writing novels when I was on the bus in 6th grade. That was always what I loved to do. And so I pursued that in school, in my undergrad, and then again in a graduate program. I have a master's in fine arts. And so I discovered early on that I loved writing. And then I, again, pursued it. I wanted to develop that skill. And that's what I've been doing for the past 10 plus years, is developing my skills as a storyteller or as a writer. And for me, my writing, every time I hit a ceiling with my writing, what kind of got me through that ceiling was learning and tweaking and crafting sentences, learning about sentences, tweaking sentences, kind of going back to the sentence. To me, that's just, I have part like creative and part like science. Like I'm mad, like I want to like a puzzle. I like putting puzzles together. And to me, a sentence is kind of like you've got all these parts, and there's an infinite amount of ways that you could pull words together and rearrange those words, and that excites me. And so therefore, if I was ever stuck in a rut, I would just return to the sentence and return to like, how can I rearrange this? How can I put different pieces of the puzzle into place? And how can I, lock in a beautiful little portrait, through this 10 to 20 words, So I've been developing, I've been developing my sentence skills, I guess, in particular for a while now. And so I've had the honor and the chance over the past 4 years to kind of give back and to give and to share that my learnings with groups of students. I teach at the local university here, a sentence course. And so I've refined that course over the last 4 years. And I'm like, you know what, like, I love this. I want to share it with kind of a broader audience. And so that's why you see me now on TikTok a lot more. That's why you see me if you subscribe to the Saturday Sentence newsletter, which is a free newsletter. I'm giving away those classes. And so that's the short version. I discovered early on I wanted to be a writer. I developed that skill, and now I'm giving that skill away, specifically when it comes to the sentence. Yeah.
Yes,
yeah.
And you were probably one of those kids who just loved diagramming sentences. That was probably the bane of my existence. I was like, I don't know, it's a bunch of words put together, and I love words. Yeah. Like words have always been a thing, but
yeah, I did. I was like, well. I was fortunate enough to have some really great English teachers, like just growing up in like junior high and high school. And, and then, we always have like and I ask my students this question, what do you think about writing? What do you think about grammar in particular? Like, what do you think about like, especially college students, like what you've learned? And they're like, the common picture is like the mean teacher with the red pen that's telling them, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong. And I had lucky enough to have teachers that were like, there is no right or wrong, really. Like there is like rules that govern a language,
Right.
but like those rules are meant to be broken in certain situations, and so they're more like the rules are more like tools, and so if you use them as tools, they're tools at your disposal. So that to me is like it unlocked the creativity inside of it, and so yeah, I love sentences. I think because I was fortunate enough to have a teacher that was like didn't give me a bad sentence experience growing up. And so I kind of want to shatter. That's what I want to kind of give away too, is like, hey, like the way you learn sentences, maybe you had a bad sentence experience. It's as you especially as you try to be creative, like the way you learned, maybe that you can break those rules, learn to break
Yes.
those rules and be okay with that, and that'll
Well,
kind
and
of unlock the
yes,
love, I
that's
think. Yeah.
exactly, that's the whole point of creativity, right? Is to be
Yes.
able to
Yeah.
say, I've got this, but now I'm making it mine.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one thing that I love about art in general, is that
Yeah.
you can take your sentence and we could have the same idea and our sentences would look completely different.
Completely
I
different.
love
Yeah.
that. And what really gets me, and it's something that we're going to need to talk about at some point, like you're
Sure.
giving away all of this stuff that, like, things that people would pay big money to learn. I watched all of your videos and I was just like, he's giving this stuff away. Like, listen, if you are listening to this podcast right now, like the perfect sentence, like all these free resources, it can't stay free for long. I'm just going to put that out there. Like it can't, it cannot.
There are plans to monetize it, so we'll get it now while I'm still
Go
working on
now.
it. Yeah,
That's right.
yeah.
We'll
So
be your guinea pigs for free. No, I
yes, I
love
want
that.
beta readers. Basically, is beta course takers is what I'm looking for. Yeah.
Yes, and it's good. And that's kind of what we're going to talk about today. Like when I first decided to write a book, my thought process was I have this idea, I'm going to put it on paper, and then it's just going to get published, it's going to get printed, it's going to get put on shelves. And that's not what happened at all. Like that's not how it works. Because I did put it on paper and then I made 4 billion edits. I sent out query letters out the wazoo and I got so annoyed and fed up with the rejection that I just went ahead and published it myself. I was like, I'm done. I'm publishing this myself and we're going to see what happens. But with that choice came needing people in my corner that I could rely on and say, hey, I need you to help me make my edits. I need you to do, make my cover pretty, all that kind of thing. And I realized that I was not the only person who probably wasn't sure where to find resources that, one, were affordable. Because if you're self-publishing, you're not getting paid by an agent or a publishing house to be like, here, we're going to make you some money. No, like, you're kind of in it on your own. And so, not that I want just free resources, but I want to find the resources that are readily available. They're good and reliable resources, and they're not going to cost me an arm and a leg because and I give away my stuff too. Like, I'm not even going to lie. Like, I have one workbook that I charge for, but all of my other resources, like I'm teaching authors how to use psychology to make better characters and more relatable characters. That's and awesome. To write better stories. So I'm going to give that away. But not everything. I want to find people like us who have these resources available. So how do we do that? Like, where do we find these people? How do we know we're supporting the right people?
Right. That's a great question. Yeah, no,
right. I know you're here to give me the answer, please.
Yeah, no, that's it. There's something in there that I think is important that I want to ask you, kind of a return question, but also kind of muse on for a second. But because you talked about, like, as a self-published author, like we don't have a lot of, like, we're strapped for cash. At least I don't want, like, a lot of us are, like, we're hustling a lot ourselves. We're investing, all of what we're investing in it is kind of on our own dime. And so if you are gonna spend money on a resource, you want to make sure that no matter the cost, like you want to make sure that resource is gonna help you achieve that goal, that end goal, which is to publish and sell books. And so how do you know if that resource is going to help you do that? Because I don't know, I'm open a can of worms. I've been the victim of, like, impulse buys, and immediately when I buy, like, there's buyer's remorse, and then I look through the stuff and I'm like, oh man, what did I do? Like, this actually isn't what I was looking for. And then, some impulse buys are what you need. You just don't know, like, and then, so it's kind of, I guess, I think for me, and what it's just the way I consume right now. Like, before I am going to buy if we're talking about resources, so if we're talking about a specific program or specific thing, like before I buy, like there's a couple things that I look at. I look at, what content do they already have, and whether it is for free or just like if I'm looking at interviews, or who are they and what kind of content do they already have, and if I utilize the content that they already have that's for free, does it help me or not? And if it helps me, then I trust them a bit more, and then I'm more willing to like climb the ladder of like, okay, if you're selling me this, then like I trust you that it's good. So there's the value that they give away, I guess, one thing. And then two, I like to look at like, I'm not saying this is everything, but like credentials, like what, like if you're touting like this is the way, you I don't know, sell 1 million copies, or this is the way that you like, this is the way that you like create characters, like if this is the way you write sentences, like what's the ethos, what's the credibility kind of surrounding this? Are they just trying to sell me something, or do they have experience in that thing? I try to weigh up a bunch of stuff, like who have they studied with, who have they studied under. I don't know. That's just a couple of things that like after I've impulse buy, like I've been in the part of funnels that are just like, here's a video sales letter. Here's something that's like, you need this. Here's your problem. Agitate that problem. Now come by. And I'm like, what does the program even look like? You're just telling me my problem, like you're just trying to sell me something,
And I hate that. Like I despise that. Oh my gosh.
Me too.
But what's so bad is that because this is part of our business, we have to sell stuff too.
I know, yeah.
Like we have to market, and I'm going,
yeah, absolutely.
The used car salesman that's out there saying, I got a deal for you.
Yeah, I'll package all this up in a deal for you. This is a $10,000 value only for $1,000. Like
that's right.
I get it. Like ultimately, if in order to continue to like, if you have a great product, like there's no shame in trying to sell that product and trying to get it in people's hands. It's just like as a consumer, as someone that's buying, how do you know, like you're saying, how do you know if this one, how do you know?
And it's so hard, but I think you're onto something, to see where they've come from before they've produced stuff, right? Like I read, your bio and everything, your MFA, you've got experience and you sound like an authority. Now I realize there are some people out there, they're very good actors and they can sound like an authority on a topic.
Maybe I'm an actor. I don't understand.
Right? I mean, but your stuff is good. And I can say that because like I have an affinity for language arts. That's always been a thing. Like words are a thing for me. I never struggled in school. I mean, math, I struggled. Language arts was never an issue. And so, like that's just the way I work. So I could hear what you had to say. I watched all of your videos and I was like, he's an authority on the subject. He knows. So I think what needs to happen, and let me back up. I'm a marriage and family counselor. I have a master's degree in marriage and family counseling. My undergrad was in psychology. I'm licensed in all kinds of coaching. So I have a background and can speak to the psychology when it comes to writing. So I'm an expert in my field, as you are. I think where we have to come at it is, and this is just me, like we have to find each other and we have to support each other and be like, you know what? It does not take me any time at all to repost something or to be like, hey, and that was kind of the point of this right here, to be like, I can recommend what you have because I see the value in it. And so we have to support each other, I think basically is what I want to get at.
Word of mouth, I guess. That's it's we're gonna trust, the word of our close friend a lot more than we're gonna trust if we're dumped into that sales funnel,
Oh my gosh, yes.
So no, that's 100% correct. Like I will trust what you say about building believable characters because of your credentials. You're a psychologist, like, and that to me, that perspective is like, oh yeah, like she knows what she's talking about. But also like after spending time with DK and like he's recommending you as well. It's like, okay, like someone I trust is recommending someone, like I'm gonna trust his recommendation as well. I think there's something to that. Finding those people, finding your network and your tribe.
Yes. And that's so hard. Like networking is so hard because I think, especially as creatives, we tend to want to hold on and isolate ourselves maybe a little bit because I don't know if it's a comparison game or we're scared of somebody taking something that's, I don't know, maybe all of the above. Like we're just a little afraid to network, but good heavens, it's so important. Like network marketing is a thing, even though we don't want it to be a thing. And that's kind of what we have to do.
And foster and build relationships. And I like, again, I talk about the ceilings that I've hit as a writer. A lot of that is like, okay, I needed to go back and like just learn how to write. But part of that is too, like there have been droughts of like, I didn't have anyone to trade work with and give
Mm-hmm.
feedback
Mm-hmm.
and just get a different perspective. And so I'm just kind of running I'm in the mud and just spinning my wheels, like.
Mm-hmm.
So I think there's like, you can't. Yeah, I hate to deal in absolutes. It's hard to be a successful creative without a network in
It
the
is.
professional. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
No, I mean, I'm just agreeing with you. Like it is, it's hard
Mhm.
to do. You can't be a solo artist. Like
Mhm.
even solo artists have an entire band to
Yeah.
back them up, like,
Right.
and I think, and finding the resources, that's the other thing is like, where do you find them? But if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is, like that. I
Yes.
know that's so cliche, but it is like, it is 100% accurate. I had, and I don't know if you have gotten this, but when you start saying, hey, I'm doing such and such, all of a sudden people come out of the woodwork to like, for me, it was, I'll review your book. It'll only cost you $25. And I'm like, you don't even like, come on, come on. Like
Yeah.
for starters,
Yeah.
English is probably not even your first language based on the what I'm reading. And I, nothing wrong with that, but
Yeah.
I'm going,
Yeah.
I don't know you. How am I going to connect with you? Like,
Yeah.
but that happens all the time. And I'm going, you can't fall for that. I know $25 for a good book review, but I want somebody to tell me if my book is really good. I don't want to pay you to make me feel good about myself.
Yeah. Yeah.
Clearly I
Yeah.
published it, so I thought it was good enough to do that with, but anyway.
Yeah. 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 No, you said that in kind of like in preparation, like if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. And
Mm-hmm.
yes, that's again, those impulse buys that I made early on and still are
Yes.
tempted to make sometimes. It's like, it's because it sounds too good to be true.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, oh, so you can, within 15 days, I can have a whole novel from start to finish, and you'll show me how to put it on Amazon, and all of a sudden these sales will become fixed. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I've written enough times now to know that, like, it takes a lot more time than that to like really
Oh
craft
yeah.
something that's like, so yes, if it's too good to be true, listener, it is too good to be true most of the time.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh. I social media is like the bane of my existence. And
Yeah.
I'm not that old. Like I'm 40 this year. I will be 40 this year. So I'm not like old. I'm not like a boomer when it comes to technology, but social
Yeah,
media just
yeah.
like, oh my gosh, like it wants to
Yeah.
kill me. It just does. And so like having to deal with seeing these pretty packages all wrapped up. So I bought this template package, I guess it was, from this girl, and she was like, it's only like $27 and it's very easy, you just like plug and play. And I was like, okay, I can do this. I'm like, it's a small business owner, I'm going to support the small business owner. And
Yeah.
I didn't use a single thing. I didn't use a single thing from that package. And I was like, it was such a waste of money. But it's like, she just made it sound so easy. And I'm like, no, you actually have to put the work in. You have to.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you bring up the aspect of social media, and I think there's something to that of like, there's a lot of noise now. And that's great for a lot of,
Mm-hmm.
like, it's great for a lot of people. Like, now we have a platform to get on, and like,
Mm-hmm.
but again, to get back to your, I guess, core question, it's like, how do you sort through all the noise, and like, and not to make it so transactional, like everything you look at, you want to like weigh under, like, am I going to buy from this person? Like, is this person legit or
Right.
not? But like, yeah, how do you sort through the noise, and how do you, as an author, like we talk about marketing, like, find your readers, find your network, find your audience,
Oh, yeah.
amidst all the noise.
And see,
I don't know,
we
I
could
haven't
spend a
cracked
whole
that
nother
code.
hour. Yes, we could
Yeah.
spend a whole hour on trying to figure that out. Like, let's break it down. We would be rich if we
Mhm.
could figure out the right answer too.
Exactly. We could package it up and sell it. There you
That's
go.
right, with a pretty little bow on top.
The templates for $27.
I mean, it is there. Come on, let's do it. Yeah, and so I think what it has been about, like, I've always been my own boss. Like, I have
Yeah.
worked for the man a couple times in my younger
Yeah.
years, and I learned real fast that was not for me. Like, that was, I would rather have the control, and that may just be my type A personality that shines through sometimes, but like, I am a control freak in so many ways. But I also just, I don't trust people to add value to what I'm doing. Does that make sense? Like, if it
Mm.
doesn't add value, I don't want any part of it. And that's just something I've kind of had to figure out over time. I had gotten a message from this one kid, and he was definitely a kid. Like, oh, bless his heart, he was definitely a kid. But he was trying to start his own business, and he had sent me a link. He was like, "Hey, I make book trailers. I think you might be interested." And I was like,
Oh, yeah.
I'm not really in the market for a book trailer, But
Yeah.
he went through the effort of contacting me, and we had a good conversation before that. Like he didn't just say, "Hey,
Mm.
I'll read your book for $25." He was like, um, I think art is really cool. Writing books is really, and it was just really sweet that he wanted to have this conversation to kind of build up to it. And so he's like, "Will you check it out?" Sure. And I mean, he wanted to charge out the wazoo for this book trailer that I didn't need, and it just really
Yeah.
didn't fit my brand. Like it wasn't what I was
Mm.
trying to portray when it came to my work.
Mm.
And I was like, you know what, you've got a future, but here's the thing, like you can find me on every social media platform, you can find my website, and you can get to know me before you start trying to market to me. So
Mm.
maybe next time when you approach somebody with your pitch, like know who you're approaching, and see how you can add value to
Oh,
what they're already offering.
sure. Yeah. Yeah.
And so that's one thing that I think is very important when you're trying to weed out resources. Like, will it add value to what you're offering, or is this just
Yeah.
something you're trying to get an easy way out so you don't have to put in the work?
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. No, I think there's something there because some resources will speak to me that won't speak to you that'll speak, and I mean that's a good sales kind of strategy is like do your research before you show up so you
Mm-hmm.
know how to add value. But too, like I would, there's I've been in that situation where like I've recognized the value in what somebody's saying or the advice that they're given, but um and maybe it's so like for example, Save the Cat. Like everyone, I don't know if everyone has read that book, and it's a screenwriting book, and they have a novel side to it too, where it's like here is the structure of what your novel or your screenplay should be.
Right.
Here's how it should base. It's called Save the Cat. Um, and I was like, okay, yeah, I'll try it, but and it's worked for some stories and hasn't worked for others.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a million like structure gurus out there that are like, like there's Story Circle, and then there's the Monomyth by Joseph Campbell, and then there's fill in the blank. And somebody did this cool chart of all of them, and it's like okay, depending on the project, and I've even seen someone talk about this on TikTok. Depending on the project, like your story might be fit for one structure
Mm-hmm.
versus another structure
Mm-hmm.
versus another one, and so there's no like silver bullet out there. And so some things that could be helpful might not be helpful for you in that stage of time or that reason. So it's like if looking at sentences and analyzing them so minutely and trying to rearrange a sentence structure just like gives you writer's block and you can't get past that, then like, hey, this might not be, that's okay. Like I know I'm not going to be like analyzing sentences to that level, and like finding your way into a story through a sentence isn't going to be for everyone, or how everyone has their own unique kind of way of crafting a story, and that's okay. And so certain resources will appeal to certain people, and that's what I found is like, and at certain times. So like, like I might not resonate. I might not need this resource right now, but I might reach a point where I'm like, actually, like that would help me at this point. Let me go check that back out. Or this actually, I can understand this more than I can understand this. Or talking about the same thing. Like this works for me. Let me pursue this. So I think that's just trial and error. It's just figuring out, hey, what are they saying? Let me try it. Does it better my process, better my writing, better? If it is, great. I'm gonna go. What else do they got? I was like,
Yeah.
versus oh, it didn't really work. Okay, well, revert back, or I'm gonna go. I need something else. What is that? I don't know if that made
Yeah.
sense within all the word jumble, but like, yeah,
Yeah. It does. And I think also that we can keep these, if it doesn't work for us, but it's still a good resource, we keep them in our back
yeah,
pocket for somebody else down the way that we're like,
yes,
hey, do you know, I heard so and so say whatever, let me send you this link. And then, not
absolutely,
only are you helping that person, but you're helping the person whose link that you
right,
sent in the first place. Yeah.
right, right, yeah, yeah, and I hope I don't sound too transaction like too like commercial with all this, because like at the end of the day, like when we talk about networking and stuff, it's just like we're just building a community. Like we're
Yeah.
like I'm you're a psychologist, I'm a human being. Like you probably know this. Like I need human to human relationships
Mm-hmm.
and connection. Like that's just my life is more enriched, more fruitful because of that. And so I naturally gravitate towards writers, and because like I'm a
Mm-hmm.
writer, and that's cool. Like, and being in again, I reach my full potential when I'm with in a group of writers who are looking to reach their full potential, and like we're like genuinely caring about each other and building relationships, and like sharing each other's work and being inspired by each other's work and giving a good feedback, like constructive criticisms where it's like, you're not gonna butter me up too much, but you're also not gonna like tear me down, because like that's just, I need to be the one on top, like those, that feedback is so important. And so like going out and like reaching out, connecting, and partnering with other creatives like that is good for the soul, good for the business, good for everyone involved, yeah. And it's not just like transactional, and it's building relationships, so I feel like I need to say that it's like you're not doing it just so you can get ahead in business. That's kind of the byproduct of like just being out there, like you're saying, and connecting and trying to, and networking, like we're talking about.
Yes. And that is literally the whole purpose. Like the teacher in me was like, no, we have to do this, because one, I came into this whole world of authoring and self-publishing, not having a clue what I was doing. And do I know it all now? Not even. That's why I'm asking all of the experts out there to like, you show me where we're going with this. Okay, that's great. I'm just a facilitator to get the information out there. And but that's my whole point, is to create a community. And it's really funny. I love that you even mentioned that, because not this coming Wednesday, but the next Wednesday, the podcast is all about why artists need community, what community is, and why it matters. And so like you're just saying it again. I know, like I love it. It's one of those things that it's understood, but again, we do get a little bashful, or we're like, ooh, I don't really want to share my art because I'm afraid somebody's going to steal it from me. I'm scared, whatever the case may be. I don't know, but and we're also kind of sensitive when it comes to criticism. I know I can be even still.
There's something about creative work, like it may be just the imposter syndrome, but you're right. It's like the moments where I'm like most resistant to like build that community is like, I don't want anyone to like hurt my baby. I don't, there's something about creative work that like when we're scared of criticism more so than like a lot of other like my professional day job, I'm a marketer, and I'll share different projects and different like I'll create a graphic here, a copy here, or share a strategy, and I'm like, like it's not impersonal. When it comes to my creative work, when I hand it off in a workshop, I'm like terrified of that session, because I'm like, should I even be a part of this, like that to me it's the fear of the criticism of my creative work, of my work, that stops me the most. But I never regret being a part of community and sharing that work and having a workshop. I never regret it, because I always feel that growth afterwards. And so I've learned to recognize it's just fear. And
it's it's your soul. You're putting your soul out there.
You're right.
And you don't really want that criticized, because that is so personal.
It's like, hey, take a look, like tear it apart. You're right. Yeah.
I'm just bleeding onto the page, by all means, to go easy on me. But at the same time, in those groups, you build the trust and you build the foundation for those relationships. And so if you go back over and over again, it gets a little bit easier. It depends on how personal the work is, I guess, that you're sharing. Sometimes it may not get easier. But at the same time, you're building the relationships, which is what I want to do. That's my goal. That's what I want to see happen.
Right. Well, I say I never regretted.
Backpedal.
There can be toxic groups out there, I will say.
Yes.
I have been a part of groups where the intent wasn't, and you learn this, and you learn this pretty quickly, I think, like the intent isn't to help each other and to build each other up and shape the work into what it needs to be. The intent is to be mean and tear you down, and so or tear others down. And if you're in that group, get out quick, because like the moments when without sharing maybe too much, because I don't want to put anyone on the spot, but like my master's program, there were groups in my master's program where that was the case, and I regressed as a writer during those semesters because it was not healthy, and my writing didn't grow because it was the community there wasn't there to help each other grow and build. And so if you're in those groups, get out of those groups and know that there's better groups
Right. Those are not your people.
Those are not your
Not
people.
your people.
Yes, that's important. That's important.
Mm-hmm. It is. Well, and I think you have to be able to be your authentic self. Like you have to be able to be who you are, whether
Absolutely.
it is, face to face or in your writing, whatever it is. And if they are not building you up, if that their only goal is to tear you down, like hightail it. You're done.
Yeah. If you're regressing, or if you're in those moments, in those groups, I questioned myself as a writer. Like I questioned whether or not I should continue with the art. And if you are if you feel called to be an artist and to write, and like even in worst days you return to the work, and when you don't write, it agitates you. Like in those if the group is making you feel like, man, maybe it just isn't for me, that's a sign to get out. Like run. If you're regressing, or if you're feeling like this isn't worth this art thing, I'm just not cut out for it, don't, just get out. That's my advice.
Well, and so I guess you could take that back to, it's not adding value to your work. You don't need it if it's not adding value. Then that's true for life. Like if it doesn't add value to your life, to your work, you don't need it.
I think that's a great point. I mean, in relationships, I mean, that's life in general. I mean, that's a great point.
Sometimes I make them, sometimes I don't, but that one has always stuck with me. Like if it doesn't add value, because for a lot of times when you're forming a community, it's kind of a give and take. You have to make sure you're also adding value to someone else's life and to their world, in order for community to actually build and grow. So that is also something to keep in mind, that you want them to add value, but you also have to add value.
Sure. I think, well, so if I'm like first starting a group or a community, how can in your eyes, what should I look for? And then how can I contribute great value to that group as well?
That's an excellent question. I think what's really important is be yourself, right? Be as authentic as you can. That is one of my words that this year I have really focused on, is just being authentic, because we live in a very, I don't know if you've seen on TikTok, the bold glamour filter that's going around, and everybody has this new filter, like they look like rock stars and models and stuff. And I'm like, that's the world we live in. We live in this world where everybody looks so fake. Everybody, and sometimes it's not even their words, it's just the way they look, and not just the way they look, but it's their words. And so you have to like work through who's filtering what. And so if you're your authentic self, you're going to attract people who are drawn to you, right? Like you are going to draw to yourself the people that you need to be around. That's just how I have always seen it, that the fake people will not be attracted to the real people, not for long anyway. And so I think that is one of the biggest value adds that you could have, is just being you and holding on to the strengths that you know that you possess, and let those be what guide your words and actions from that point forward.
That's a great explanation. It makes me think of like, immediately my mind goes to like writing, it's like you're developing your style. I've talked about this a little bit of like, how do you develop your style? Like just write, be you, see what words are like on the page. And you'll bring that self in your story out if you just start to write and start to develop your style as identity. Anyway, so in life and in writing, just be yourself, and
exactly. Well, I mean, and what do they say? Art is like imitation of life, and life is imitation of art. Like it is a two-way street. And when I put words on the page, I am so bad about self-editing. Like I always think way too hard about who's going to read this and what are they going to think about me? And I'm like, that is so not the point of my story. But that's what happens quite often. And so I have to stop myself. I know there's a psychological reason, we're not going to get into that.
Well, how do you get past that? Because like because even in my teaching, I talk a lot about like, think about what impact this sentence is going to have on your reader. Or even if we eliminate the reader, let's say what impact you're going for. And so you kind of have to think about that, like and that's what feedback groups are for, is like, how did this land? Did it land how I wanted to? But if you think about it too much, you'll get writer's block, right? It won't. So how do you get past that how do you get past that, I guess?
I
How do
literally, like,
you
when I
personally?
find myself personally,
Yeah.
when
Yeah.
I find myself overthinking these things, like, I will stop what I'm doing and I will just, it's a conversation I have to have with myself that, Jennifer, nobody's reading it right now. You're the only
Mm-hmm.
person reading it right now. Like, just
Yeah.
write it. You can edit later.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
it is a conversation that I have to have with myself on a regular basis, that because for
Absolutely.
so long I started to over filter myself. Just, I didn't speak my mind. I got burned too many times, and I was just like, nope, I'm gonna hole up and not speak anymore. And I'm like, life's too short. Like,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
they can deal with it on the other end. I'll be nice about it, but I'm gonna say what I'm gonna say. And that's true for my writing too. Like, I'm just gonna put it out there.
Mm,
But I do sometimes have to come up with some good rah rah,
yeah.
sis boom bah, like, just write it, just write
Yeah.
it.
Well, yeah, that's a great point, because I think, like, in my mind, we're talking about like that first draft, or like that initial, just like getting it on the page, and
Just
it's
put it
like,
there.
just
Mm-hmm.
put it down, like just get it on the
Mm-hmm.
page. Like there'll be a time to think about, and that's what I had to tell my students. I had one student I learned early on, like I was like teaching them all these techniques and everything, and then they were like staring at the blank page. I had one student be like, how do I start? Like, do I start with like a rule of three? Do I start with repetition? Do I start with like, do I start, like, with this structure, with left branching, with right, with middle? Do I do? And I was just like, oh yeah, yeah, I could see that being like, you're just over, like, you're thinking about the effect, and it's paralyzing.
Mm-hmm.
So I was just
Mm-hmm.
like, then I was like, okay, guys, just get it on the page. Like, just don't
Yes.
think about these things until it's time to think, like, just until you have something to work with, like, and
Yes.
there will be a time where you have to think about, like, how's this going to land with a reader, and like you
Right.
get edits back, or like you're in revision 2, 3, 4, 5, and it's like, all right, what's on the page, what am I intending, how is someone going to receive this, who is that someone I'm picturing. A lot of times we're picturing ourselves, like we're writing a
Right.
book that we want to read, so it's like, how
Mm-hmm.
would I want to like see this through, um but yeah, so I think, yeah, if you just got to get it on the page first, there'll come a time, and I am the same way. It's like, I want it to get perfect. And I know some people
Yes.
that works for them. Like, they write like that like the sentence has to be perfect before they move to the next one. That's just not me. I can't do that. Like, I
Mm-mm.
will
Mm-mm.
quit the project quicker than writing the first sentence down. I
Yes.
need to get something on the page, not something to mold and shape. So
Yes.
yeah, just get it down, and then
Absolutely.
worry
And
about
you
it.
know what? Exactly. That's what I pay an editor for. I'm not gonna lie. Like, that's
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that first round, because my first book came out in October and my second one's coming out this fall. And I'm real excited about it because after the first experience, like, I learned that your editor is not there to like criticize you. She's there to be your friend, or he's there to be your friend and to help make your work the best it can be.
Yeah.
And so that has also helped to know that
Yeah.
I can get it on the page, and then she'll come behind me and be like, and we're taking that off the page, or we're going to
Yeah.
rework it a little bit, whatever the
Yeah.
case may be. But that also helps, knowing that you have a team that you've put in place, even if, you have
Yeah.
to pay for it. Those resources matter. And so you have to make sure that you have to form that relationship with them too, though, because that's a trust building exercise, if
I
I
was
may
about to
say
say,
so.
like,
Like,
choosing an editor is like almost like choosing a spouse. Like,
oh my gosh.
how do you make sure you're choosing the right editor? Especially if I've seen this a lot on TikTok lately, where people are asking, like, like, even if I can afford an editor, like how do I choose the right one? Like, like, how do you,
Yes,
like, what was what Jennifer, what's your advice? You found one, like, what,
I
like, we've
did.
talked about this of like, how to find the right resources. How do
Well,
you?
and so it's really funny because
Yeah.
I had really, there was a nice little Google search involved with how to
Yeah.
find an editor.
Oh, well, good.
So
Yeah.
I,
Yeah.
that's a good place to start. But I ended up on a website called Reedsy, Reedsy, and
Mm-hmm.
that you can find editors, you can find of all varieties of editors. You can find cover designers, you can find ghostwriters, whatever. You can find all the things that to publish a
Okay.
book that you could possibly need. And it's a
Yeah.
great website because you go in and say, I'm looking for this. So I was looking for someone who would do developmental and copy editing. And this was the length of my project and all that jazz. And so then I got back like several results because several people have put in and said, this is what I'm willing to do. Here's some of my work, and I can look at it. And the editor I ended up with, she writes in the same genre that I had been writing in.
Mm,
And
mm,
there were just a lot of things that aligned. And so I conversed with I think there were 4 different editors that I talked to. And when I sent like the first
mm.
chapter of my work, when she sent it back, I felt like she had kept my voice the best, and
Oh, cool.
so
Yeah.
that's another thing with an editor. Like, you don't want them to go in and write their own book when they edit it. You
Yeah.
want it to be your book in the end. And so
Yeah.
there was just a relationship that had to be built through the communication. And
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
It's like finding like good feedback partners too. It's like the best ones. This is not helpful, but like, like you have a vision for the book, and when they, or the short story or whatever it is, and when they edit it, they push you closer to that vision, even closer than like you could have done on your own. And that's like, yep, that's them. And they may be different from story to story, I found too. But like that's them. If you can find someone that like understands your vision and just gets it and then helps you achieve it, yes, even better than you could on your own, like that's
don't let that person go. That's your person.
Yeah,
that is your person. And
you say, how much money do you want? No,
my wallet is empty, but I will do whatever you ask of me. Like, yes, it's this is the first.
No,
yeah. I'll write
Don't
you
do
a check.
That.
Don't
Maybe.
take it to the bank. Yeah. This is the last time I had like a couple of friends who were, I didn't tell anybody that I was writing a book for the longest time. I was just like, that sounds kind of outlandish. And I don't know, it just sounded weird to say it out loud. And so I hadn't really embraced it. And, but I had told a couple of people and they were like, can I read it? And I'm like, no, like, why would I let you read my book? Like, no. But anyway, so I had a couple of people read it before it was published. And this go around, my confidence grew a little bit through just the process of it all. And so I've got a team of beta readers reading through it this go around, and it's my first try, but I made it to where like they had to basically interview for the job, because I'm very particular about whose advice I'm going to take when it comes to this process. And so I was like, no, I need to know you and a lot of your quirks and habits, because I don't care if you want to know every little detail that's not in the book. Like, I need to know how you're going to treat the book as a whole. Anyway, it was a whole process. And I've never been this excited about people reading my stuff before. I was just like, it's like a community. It is. It's like a little community of readers. And so.
That's awesome. Yeah. So interview your beta readers. That's what I mean.
That's right. Hey, seriously, because there are some people, they just want to read the book early. They just want to know. They're just nosy. Yeah. And so I'm sorry, you can wait and get it when it comes out.
Buy it, please. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. Get my royalties up on Amazon a little bit. That's great.
Yeah.
All $3 of them. Yeah. That's a whole nother ballgame.
Anyway. Yeah.
So we'll kind of, I know you've got things to do and the day is going to get away from us, but what is one piece of advice or encouragement that you would want to give the listeners just about resources, finding resources, trusting resources, building your community, anything we've talked about?
One piece of advice. Yeah.
Just one, narrow it down.
Just one. Yeah. No, see, before I do that, which I know a lot of people are, I write long, and then I cut like I just cut away. And so same with my speech. If I don't have time to refine, I'll talk long, man. You gotta
do it. Hey, that's fine too.
so it's hard. So what'll happen is like, I'll come up with a piece of advice now, and then I'll think about it later on and be like, I should have edited it to this. So, maybe if you give me some mercy, I can come back and re-record this section. But
absolutely. Just you send me a voice recording and we'll put it in. We'll just edit.
We'll just splice it in. But in case not, I think the one piece of advice right now for writers, for aspiring writers, when it comes to just building a community, I think for me, I go back to, one, get in a community if you're not. And then here's the advice. Again, when you're in a good one, and when you're in a toxic one. And if you're in a toxic one, know that there's good ones and get into a good one. And again, a good one is we're all there to help each other, to build each other up, to help us realize what our vision is, our different works are, and like, push our works to the best that they could be. Find those group of people. Don't be afraid to reach out to people. Get in a good one. If you're in a toxic one, leave it. It's not you. It's the group. And if you're in a good one, hold on to them, because ultimately the success formula to me to writing is, learning through reading. And DK put it perfectly, I think, in a podcast that we did, was being mindful, being aware of just like the world around you, because there's written moments everywhere.
Oh yeah.
So, you know, learn, be mindful, read others work, read your idols. So that goes into like the learning phase. Feedback, getting feedback on what you've written, so that comes down the community. And then just writing. And so if you're learning, if you're writing, if you're getting feedback on what you're writing, you're going to write you're going to develop something great. I say great, but you're going to realize the vision that you've kind of set out to write down, or you're going to realize the idea that you've set out to kind of put onto paper. So find that good group. It's essential, and when you find it, hold on to it. So there's one piece of advice in there somewhere.
Yes. No, that's perfect. That's great, because surrounding yourself with people who want to see the best for you. I mean, honestly, that's what it is. And to be the person that wants to invest in other people too.
Yes.
Don't make it just a selfish thing. It is. It's both ways. Like, I want to see your perfect sentence course. Like, one, I want to see it like take off, because it's something that people need. Like, it is one of those things that I think, especially people who are afraid of writing, they're like, I'm just not good at writing. And because I agree with you that writing, especially the technical part of writing, can absolutely be taught. It is something that, and once you are confident in your technical skills in writing and that kind of thing, then you don't worry so much about that, and you're allowed to be more creative. And so, yes, I think that, we need to make sure that people understand that just, you can be taught, you can learn. Find that community of people who are going to encourage you to grow in those things. And so that's why when I saw your stuff and DK was like, hey, you have got to talk to him, I was like, yeah, I agree, because I had already seen some of your stuff on TikTok. And so I was like, man, no, he's pretty smart. But now I absolutely have just a little smart. He's just a little smart. Just a little.
I agree.
But I was just like, he's one of those resources that I can recommend to people, and not be like, I'm going to send somebody something bad. Like, I'm not going to worry about that, because I can say, hey, this is one of those resources. And all that being said, just for the people who are listening, all 12 of you, or however many have shown up today, that his resources are going to be listed in the show notes. And so, you don't have to go searching for them. They'll all be in the show notes. We'll have a way to get you subscribed to his newsletter and all that jazz. And you can, and then for now it's free. So that's what I'm saying. You need to take advantage of
beta course
now.
Takers. Yeah.
That's right.
I need to interview you all first.
That's hey, listen, I'm not even kidding. Like, you need to make sure that if you've got a beta reader group coming up.
Yeah.
I'll be glad to share with you my resource for like my intake form. Like, it's a pretty detailed intake form. I was like,
okay. Yeah.
Yep, I'll send it your way. Hey, we'll share resources.
That's a resource of value right there. Yeah.
That's right. And it's free. Anyway, well, okay. So join a community, and if it doesn't add value, you don't need it. I think those are like the two biggest takeaways that we have come up with today, which I love it. It's been such a good conversation. So just like, thank you for hanging out and having this conversation, because it's one of those things that it needs to be talked about, but sometimes we don't think to talk about it. But I think finding resources and trusting resources, legitimate resources, is something we need to be willing to share with everybody. So thank you. And I hope that your perfect sentence course, like, I hope that it just takes off, because it's a resource that everybody needs.
I think what you're doing here is amazing and awesome. Trying to connect creatives and sharing that. And so if there's anything I can do to help spread the good news, spread the gospel, then let me know.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And here's something that I'm going to just leave our listeners with before we go. It was just a thought that I had, and I jotted it down. Life becomes more meaningful when you learn to only accept things that add value. So be sure to surround yourself with people, experiences, and things that inspire and uplift you, and you will watch your life transform into something extraordinary. And I think that just kind of sums up everything we talked about, which I just love, because that was a thought that came to me before we even had our conversation. And so,
awesome.
Like, the people you surround yourself with will make a huge difference. So
absolutely.
Anyway, all of that to say, in the meantime, before we talk again, all of you out there, go be creative, be authentic, and just look for an opportunity to make an authentic connection like we have done here today.